Hey, what's going on, guys? Well, today I want to do a comparison video between these two knives right here, but mainly focus on the knife on the left. So the knife in question is a Brother Model 1601. And if you're not familiar with this appearance, this is an exact copy of a Spyderco Manix 2 XL, okay? Which is the bigger version of the Manix 2, which we have a genuine Spyderco Manix 2 over here. Now this knife I got from GearBest probably 5, maybe 6 months ago. This Manix 2 I've had for many years now. This is one of those knives that I got in trade and just could never get rid of. It's just, I knew there'd be so much regret with this particular knife. It's just awesome. It really is. I mean, it's buttery smooth, cuts like a champ, super ergonomic. I love this knife a lot. So this one stuck around as a backup option when I'm not testing knives, which is rare. Maybe one day out of the week I'll grab something I already know I love and I'll just carry that just for kind of a throwback, But anyway, this knife was gaining a lot of interest. I had a couple people send me messages asking about it in the last month or two, and so I figured I'd do a video on it. But instead of doing a review on this specific knife, I figured I'd talk about it and compare it to what it's trying to mimic. Now again, this is not a direct comparison because I really should have the Manix 2 XL be a better comparison, but I just don't have one available to me right now, so this should be good enough as far as showing the different features of this this actual design. So first off, I know you guys are wondering what's going on with this green background. A very simple explanation. My wife was doing some Christmas present wrapping for family members, and she was using her cutting board, her craft cutting board, whatever this is, and she left it out, and it's sitting right in my spot. I figured, hey, that's a more solid background than the Christmas tablecloth, so we're using it for today. Let me know if you like it. Alright, so let's focus on just this knife first. Let's take Spyderco out of the frame, out of the picture, out of mind. Try to keep a very unbiased opinion when looking and when I'm talking about this knife, because most people would just look at this and say, yeah, it's a Spyderco ripoff, screw it, forget it, I'm not even going to consider it. From my moral standpoint, they stole the design, they're taking the credit, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course, you can have a certain moral stance and just say, no, I don't buy fakes, I don't buy copies, and that's how a lot of people feel about this, and I totally respect that. I know a lot of guys that do that. Hey, you know what, if it looks like a Spyderco and it's not, I'm not going to buy it. If it looks like a Benchmade, it's not. These are Chinese companies or foreign companies that are just stealing these designs, and I don't want to support them and all that stuff. That's cool. Believe me, I totally support that. I totally understand. But doing a review or trying to give people information about something, I take that bias out of the equation. I'm not looking at this as a copy of another company, stealing their work. I'm trying to see it for what it is. There's a lot of people out there, there's a market for everything. There's a lot of people out there that don't have the money for the real deal, so they want to settle on something like this. And that's why I'm making these videos, is just for information. That's all it is, it's education. For people who are, hey, how good is that? Is that as good as the real one? No, they never are. I'll tell you that right now. If you ever see a copy of a design, I've never once had a copy of something that's been better than what it was trying to copy. So right off the bat, if you're new to knives, any kind of copy of a design is never going to be as good. And clearly, you should use some common sense. The $20 version of the $120 knife or $130 knife, of course it's not going to be as good. They just can't afford to manufacture it as good or better. So that should be clear to everyone. It's just people have kind of a question of like, well, how crappy is it? Is it usable? Is it total junk? And that's what I'm here to kind of talk about more. I'm focusing more on just the knife as opposed to the design. Again, really trying hard to keep the bias out of the equation. For $22, my biggest issue with this is the lockup. There is up and down play. Let me see if you can hear that. You can probably hear that. Up and down play is not acceptable. That's not something that me, the user, can fix. That is basically a poor matchup between the base of the blade here and the locking mechanism. Side-to-side play can be adjusted. Usually with the pivot screw, you can tighten it down, and you can take out that play. Sometimes, by the time you take out the play side to side, it becomes so hard to close that, it's not even worth it. You have to loosen it back up again. But more times than not, you can play around with the pivot screw and you can adjust side to side play. But up and down, you're screwed. There's nothing you can do here. You got to send it back to get replaced. That's essentially all that happened. Is it's just not precise, tolerances, and that's a problem for me, and that's something that bothers me. A really, really tiny bit of up and down, I can live with it. It still bugs me. But when you have something that moves this much, I mean, that's too much. I don't like it. So for that reason alone, I would probably stay away from this one, and I don't recommend this particular knife. But again, if that's something that's not that big of a deal to you, or in most cases, like I've said before in the past, is that these copies are so inconsistent. This one has up and down play. If I got 5 more of these, maybe the 4 out of the other 5 are totally fine and lock up great. You know, maybe 2 of those 5 are really sharp and the other ones are dull. They're very inconsistent because they're pumping these things out as cheap as possible to sell them as cheap as possible. They're not focused on the quality as much as they are focused on the quantity. Does that make sense? They make as many of them as they can, as fast as they can. As opposed to Spyderco. Why do you think you're paying more for the product? It's not just the materials are better, but the quality's better. The finish is better. The customer service and attention to detail, and people in the factory are not letting knives with up and down play get packaged into a box and shipped out to be sold. Quality control is a big deal, and that's again part of what you're paying for when you're buying one of these more expensive knives. So the up and down is a total game over for me. Not a fan. Let's say that you get one of these and it doesn't have play. Well, let's proceed forward. We know the design's good, tried and proven. Great design, obviously, from Spyderco. As far as like the locking mechanism and the retention here, it doesn't retain as well as a Spyderco. I mean, I can flick this thing out if I really want to. You can see it moving a little bit, but with the actual Manix, not gonna be able to do that. Okay, unless I depress this lock, it's not coming out. And not to mention, just so buttery smooth in comparison, to this, which just is sticky. And believe me, I lubed the hell out of this this pivot area. It was way worse when I first got it. It's kind of breaking it now a little bit. Granted, this one has a lot more, use on it and age on it. But I mean, this thing is just buttery smooth. So yeah, I mean, it's rough around the edges, as you would expect it would be, So let's say you get one and there's no blade play and it locks up nice and fine. I will say, it came sharp. It's Mark 440C. I have to believe it. I have no choice. There's no way for me personally to test that. But again, when you're talking about a company that's so willing to steal design, you have to kind of question the blade steals. They can put whatever they want in the blade. And I've seen counterfeits where they have a 440A blade, or something like pot metal practically. And they'll put like S30V on there or D2 or whatever they think is popular that people want. They think that you're stupid as a consumer. You're not going to know the difference. Well, looking at it, you're not going to know the difference. But once you start using it, you will notice the difference. However, I will say that in this particular case, I believe that it's 440C as far as how it performed. Did a fairly good job. No complaints, really. It was very easy to touch up. I did sharpen this on a very fine stone. I don't remember the grit offhand, but sharpened up pretty nicely. And it stayed fairly sharp, during my testing. So no biggie there. As far as comparing it, let's get the Spyderco back here and do a direct side-by-side. The first thing I noticed is that the hardware is all raised. Okay, they're all like domed screws. That makes sense, whereas on the Spydercos, everything is all flush with the scale. Very nice. All right, the jimping, they mimicked slightly, but not to a T. In other words, you can see the jimping on the inside of the liners. All right, on the Spyderco, it has a little bit of a tighter pattern, if that makes sense. Very pointy. It's not super aggressive on the Spyderco. It just feels, it kind of tickles my finger a little bit, whereas this one, even less aggressive, but it doesn't quite tickle my finger. I actually prefer the jimping on the inside of the handles on the Brother as opposed to the other Spyderco. However, that's only right there. When we flip them over, the jimping on the spine on the Spyderco here is not on the Brother at all. All right, and the jimping on the little thumb ramp here in the base of the blade, much prefer the Spyderco one. It's very, it's aggressive, but it's comfortable. This one's too aggressive. The one on the Brother is literally sharp, okay? Actually cuts into your skin. Not a fan of that at all. As I flip over, you can see on the inside of the finger choil, there is jimping. Same deal, way too aggressive. It actually feels very uncomfortable, whereas the Spyderco is very comfortable to use. And again, you can see on the liners on the Spyderco on the right, some jimping here as well. So your finger really just locks in very nicely between your pointer finger and your thumb. I mean, it's just awesome, awesome grip. Whereas this one is too much grip. It's just way too much. It's uncomfortable and actually irritates the, your pointer finger here when using it like that. Look at the spines. You can see on the Brother they put a little slogan here: one knife, one life. Interesting, I suppose. As far as the locks, huge, huge difference. Just, you can feel how smooth and fluent this is. It doesn't even feel like you're pushing on a spring. It just feels like you're sliding. The resistance is very consistent all the way down. This lock, it's mushy. It feels gritty. It's very, very stiff. Just completely night and day. Not to mention there's play side to side. You're not gonna be able to hear it, but you could see it there. There's side to side play. It wiggles a lot. Whereas on the Spyderco, barely moving left to right. Okay, it only wants to move up and down. And obviously, again, as far as the tolerances here, Spyderco, so smooth, so easy to open. Little resistance. Takes nothing to open that, but again, it's not going to swing open. Whereas this one, on the Brother, takes more force. It stumbles around. It doesn't know where it wants to be. It's kind of, like that. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just very, very roughly done. Attention to detail, smooth, tight tolerances, loose tolerances, rough, not cut properly, just gritty, and what rhymes with gritty. So, I mean, like I said, it is night and day. There's no comparison here. If you've been a span, yeah, that's what you are. You're spans, Spyderco fans. If you've been a fan of Spydercos, you know the deal. Okay, you know where the quality is. You're very familiar with their standards. Brother doesn't have the same standards, obviously. It's just different. It'll never be as good, and I think that should be apparent across the board. It doesn't matter what the copy is. You could be copying a Benchmade, a SOG, a CRKT, a fake Microtech. It doesn't matter. The copy is never going to be nearly as good as the real deal, and the price reflects that too. So some people may take that into consideration. Like, yeah, right, fine, I want the Spyderco, but I don't want to spend the money, or I don't have the money to spend, so I'm totally happy with settling with the fake, the imposter, the copy, the cheaper version of that design. And as I said many times in the past, the only benefit I see to these knives is that you can get one of these for $22. You can figure out whether you want to spend the $130 or $120. That's where these come into play for me. I don't like supporting them. I don't like suggesting them or recommending them, but I do keep an unbiased opinion. If there's a good usable knife, okay, that's a copy of another design, I'll recommend them. I'll suggest them because it's a good knife. I try to take the politics out of the equation. But this one's just not good. It might just be this particular sample's not good. Other ones might be great, but this one's no good. And I only have one to go by. So the up and down blade play is a total, it's a loss for me. I can't suggest it because of that. But even if it didn't have that at all, it just doesn't have the quality. It just feels cheap. It really feels cheap. Especially when you can compare them side by side. When you grab the real Spyderco and then you grab the copy of similar design, it's just, you feel it right away. Other differences, the actual G10, the Spyderco G10 has a slightly finer pattern. There you go, you can see that. All right, this one is a little bit of a larger pattern, and what I mean by that is, like, when you rub your finger on this, it feels a little smoother. They both have texture, but this barely has texture. This has a little bit more texture to it. If they were sandpaper, this would be a finer grit. Okay, we're talking 1000 grit here, 800 grit here, if that makes sense. As far as like your grip, it makes no difference. Okay, if you literally like this, grab one in each hand, they feel the same. It's when you're really scrutinizing and going, okay, and you're penning your knives, all right, that one's a little smoother than that one. I'm just telling you because it's the facts, but it doesn't make a difference on grip or anything. But yeah, I mean, just they're different, and they always will be different. Doesn't matter what models it's mimicking, what comparison I do, they'll always be different. The cheaper one will be cheaper. In this particular case, I just don't like this one. As far as the pocket clips, they again mimic the design, but the fake, or I should say the copy, because there's a difference between a fake and a copy, or I should say a copy and a counterfeit. It's not trying to be a Spyderco, it's just stealing their idea. But yeah, the clip is basically the same design, but the actual Spyderco flares out more here and it's thinner. This one's slightly thicker, and obviously the logo is not on this one. But they work the same, and it is a very functional pocket clip. It worked totally fine in the pocket. Compared to the actual Spyderco, the Spyderco has more flex in it. It's a little easier to use. This one is definitely a stiffer clip, but I didn't find that it gave me any problems. All right, you can see, trying to lift this up, way stiffer than the actual Spyderco one. However, in the pocket, it didn't give me any trouble. Now again, I can't compare as far as like how these ride because it is a different design. The handle designs are different between the Manix 2 and the Manix 2 XL. But yeah, just it's interesting. The liners on the Brother are more of a flat finish as opposed to the actual Spyderco where everything is kind of polished up. I don't know if you guys can tell. Actually, I should probably close these, give you a top view. It might show it a little bit better here, but the Spyderco, more of a satin or polished finish to that, whereas this is more of a dull matte finish throughout those liners. But you know, hey, it is what it is. Also with Spydercos, the inside of the opening hole always has a sharp edge, which really grabs your thumb. Sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't like that. Flicking them out, it's much easier to grab. This one has a slightly rounder inside the hole here, okay, so more potential to slip, and you can see you can't even flick that out smoothly because the knife is just so choppy and gritty. It's just not smooth. It's like that. I feel the resistance as it's rubbing on things, you know what I mean? Whereas this one, again, it's just so buttery smooth and wonderful. All right. So, like pretty much every comparison I've ever done between a copy and the real deal, I like the real one better. It's worth the money, but if you didn't know if you wanted to drop $120 on the knife, maybe it's worth spending the 30 bucks. And if you like the design and you think it's something cool and it's something you want to use, save up, get the real deal, and give the copy to a friend or something, or throw it in the tackle box or the junk drawer. You know what I mean? That's the only purpose I see for these knives, is just to test out these knives without having to buy them. That's really it. I sometimes like the copies because of, you know, what they're actually offering for the money. This particular case, the Brother 1601, at least the one I got, it's no good. It's junk. So hopefully that helps you out. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a great day. Give me feedback on this board if you like it. You know, I'll always use the wood table, but as far as like during the holidays, whether I'm using tablecloth or this, what do you prefer? Do you prefer this green background or the tablecloth? So I'm trying to, you know, keep something that's not so distracting. You want to focus on the knives and not what's going on, you know, behind them. So once again, thanks so much for your time. I always appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you soon. Have a great day, guys.